My friends, my last few messages have tried to clarify my understanding of God as loving and compassionate, as incapable of any violent act, whether in the past, the present, or the future. Violence is anathema to God, for God knows that any violent act only begets more violence. Rather than freeing an oppressed person from an oppressor, violence will only make the oppressed person the oppressor. The history of my people offers a lesson in this. For millennia, my people have suffered horrendous violence and oppression at the hands of others, not least because of me. From slavery in Egypt to the oppression of Assyria, Babylon, and Rome, and then to centuries of persecution at the hands of those who claimed to follow me and blamed them for my death. O my people, I cannot stop grieving for the suffering I indirectly caused you. If only I could have foreseen it, perhaps I could have prevented it. When the Holocaust, which killed so many of my people, finally exposed the suffering of so many innocents, my people were given their own homeland once again. Did they then remember the oppression and violence which they had suffered, and agree not to inflict the same on others? No. They almost immediately began to oppress their neighbors, including the very people whose homeland they were now occupying, as if God had really given this land to my people. The idea that God chose one people and gave those people a promised land was conveyed by our ancient leaders, not by God. Just as the idea of my being God came from the religious leaders of the early church. God does not favor any one people or any one nation over others. Indeed, God hates the very idea of borders and nations. All people, all people are equal in God's eyes, as our own prophets began to understand, and as I tried to say 2,000 years ago. My followers generally understood me when I said that violence is not God's way, that loving enemies is God's way. And so for centuries they refused to bear arms and do violence to others. And their mission was to care for those in need. But those days were far too short. When the day came that the nations themselves claimed to follow me, leaders of the church felt it was time to reintroduce humanity to the God of violence found in much of Scripture. The sword became a necessary way to fight evil, even to be used on others who claimed to follow me. I cannot understand how the absurdity of this was not recognized.